Namaskar. Welcome to the session on the basic properties of ecology. Tourism offers to study ecology in an integrated manner. This unique opportunity, as well as a challenge to ecologists as tourism activities influence the structure and function of nature either positively or negatively. The success of tourism industry ultimately depends on habitats which are diverse, that is both habitat and species diversity, rich in natural resources and relatively free from degradation or pollution. Hence, tourism policy makers and managers have to understand the basic principles of ecology and environment to evolve long-term sustainable tourism strategies. In this episode, let us try to understand the basic properties of ecology. The main objective of learning has been presented under 5 broad categories: history of ecology, biodiversity in ecosystems, basic laws of ecology, hierarchical level of organizations, and sustainability. Firstly, coming to the introduction. The term ecology was first coined by Reiter in 1868. It is first defined by a German scientist Ernst Haeckel in 1869. It has been derived from 2 Greek words, namely oikos meaning home or estate and logos meaning study. Literally, it means the study of the home or household of nature. Smith in 1996 defines ecology as a study of structure and function of nature. Let me say that the structure includes the distribution and abundance of organisms. It is influenced by the biotic and abiotic element of environment. Its function includes all aspects of growth and interactions of populations. This includes competition, predation, parasitism, mutualism, and transfer of nutrients and energy among them. History of ecology. There are several opinions about the beginnings of ecology. It is traced to Charles Darwin, Thoreau, and Haeckel, and Theophrastus. He wrote about the interrelationship between organisms and the environment. He is the pioneering ecologist. The roots of ecology can be traced to natural history. With the evolution of human societies, their ecological knowledge base also got accumulated in the form of natural history. There are 2 major cultural shifts, that is the agricultural revolution, which happened about 10,000 to 12,000 years ago, and the industrial revolution, which happened 275 years ago. Indian texts and ecological principles. Indian texts are full of references to ecological principles. For instance, the Vedas, Samhitas, Brahmanas, Aranyakas, and Upanishads have references to ecological concepts. The Indian medical treatises like the Charaka Samhita and Sushruta Samhita state that air, land, water and seasons were indispensable and polluted air and water were injurious for health. During 19th century, biogeography evolved due to extensive travel by the sea voyages. Charles Darwin and Alfred R. Wallace were the pioneering evolutionary ecologists. In India, during 19th century, the first comprehensive ecological contribution was made in 1921 by Professor Dadgyan of Allahabad University. Environment. The environment is nothing but the totality of man's surroundings. Environment Paul Panel of the United States of America of 1965 mentions it as the sum of all social, biological and physical or chemical factors which compose the surroundings of man. The resources are grouped under 2 broad categories. They are natural and man-made. The natural resources are land, water, air, biota, including flora and fauna, energy and fuels, and raw materials. The man-made resources are socio-economic infrastructure, human population, and cultural heritage. Study of ecology and environment for tourism. The natural resource base supporting tourism is heavily stressed around the main tourist destinations. Changes in the physical, spatial, and socio-economic structure of a tourist area and the environmental problems testify this. As you know that the tourism is a multifaceted phenomenon cutting across several sectors. They are geographical, socio-economic, ecological, or environmental dimension of tourism. The emerging tourism scenarios in both the first and third world countries indicate the vital importance of the ecology of the tourism destination areas and environmental qualities to determine the quality of the tourism products. Thus, now they occupy a leading position in the tourism policies and planning. The success of the tourism industry ultimately depends upon habitats. They are diverse, rich in natural resources, and free from degradation or pollution. Hence, it is essential for tourism policy makers and managers to understand the basic principles of ecology and environment to evolve long-term sustainable tourism strategies. Now next, coming to biodiversity in ecosystems. Biodiversity or biological diversity is species richness. It is the number of species present in a geographical unit. Biodiversity also deals with both structure and function of the ecological communities. It is nothing but a variety of life forms. Even human cultural diversity can also be considered as part of Earth's biodiversity. Based on the needs for conservation, one can study biodiversity at 5 levels, that is genetic diversity, species diversity, which is variety of plant, animal and microbial species in a given community. Next is community diversity, for example, coral reef community. Ecosystem or ecological diversity, which includes forests, deserts, grasslands, streams, lakes and oceans. These basic human and development needs depend on this biocapital. This rich variety of genes, species and ecosystems give us food, wood energy, fibers, raw materials, medicines, etc. We can also classify biodiversity as follows. Microbial biodiversity dealing with biodiversity of microorganisms, plant biodiversity dealing with the diversity of animal species, endemic biodiversity dealing with native species, introduced biodiversity dealing with exotic species, domesticated biodiversity dealing with domesticated plants, animals and microbes, agricultural biodiversity dealing with cultivated plants and domesticated animals. In the conservation of biodiversity, both species richness and their relative abundance are taken into consideration. About 50 years back, India had a rich genetic diversity of cultivated crops and domesticated animals. These different crops and animals were carefully selected and bred to suit geographical, climatologically, ecologically and edaphically environments. Such diverse habitats provides microecological niches for crop or livestock diversification. When such habitats are disturbed by humans, that includes tourism, it will result in the erosion of germ plasma resources. This is irreversible. Also, it is a great loss to the present and future generations. Basic laws of ecology. The following 4 basic laws of ecology are proposed by Barry Commoner. Everything, including humans and non-humans, is interconnected, interdependent, and interactive and intermingled with everything else. For instance, intensifying tourism activities on mountain slope will destroy soil cover, decrease biodiversity, increase soil erosion or floods, affect the lowland settlements or agro-ecosystems. This is exactly what we witness in popular hill stations like Ooty and Kodaikanal. Any human activity, including tourism, will result in a waste product and pollute the surroundings. For example, transportation, consumption of water, and consumption of energy and food. There is no such thing as a free utilization of resources. You have to pay the environmental cost of development. The negative cost of development may be reduced but cannot be completely eliminated. Nature has the capacity to heal or repair itself within certain limits. Until now, no solutions are found for the environmental problems caused by overexploitation of the natural resources, resulting in the loss of biodiversity, soil erosion, and pollution. A 5th law is recently added. It states that nature is more complex than we know. These 5 laws of ecology are important both for the academic community, the scientists, the policymakers or implementers, NGOs, or other local institutions dealing with any aspect of development, leave alone tourism. Now, next is about the basic properties of ecosystems. Human activity, from that of hunter-gatherers to that of high-tech human society, is bound to produce certain impacts on the ecosystem. Hence, the adage, development without destruction, can be considered as a misnomer. However, any natural resource or ecosystem has the ability to withstand such negative impacts provided they are controlled with reasonable limits. Next is the hierarchical levels of organization. A species is a group of organisms. It resembles each other in appearance, behavior, clinical makeup, processes, and genetic structure. The individuals of a species can interbreed and produce fertile offsprings. Human beings are just one species with a unique ecology. On the one hand, they cause the most serious degrader of our natural resources and ecosystems. And on the other hand, we have the ability to evolve management strategies for the same. The distribution of species with a community shows 2 main characteristics: species richness and evenness. The more equitable the distribution, the greater is the evenness. Species diversity, which considers both the species richness and evenness, increases as the numbers of individuals in the total population are more equitably distributed among the species. Local diversity reflects and is influenced by regional diversity. That is the product of climatic history, historical accidents, and geographical position of dispersal barriers. Dispersal is the spreading of individuals. It may involve active or passive movements. Migrations also alter the biodiversity. Habitat is the place where plants, animals, and microbial communities live and interact. The overall habitat of a community is the macrohabitat. This is divided into microhabitats, that part of the general habitat utilized by an organism. For example, the macrohabitat of a tropical rainforest and the microhabitats is the stream of invertebrate communities attached to the aquatic plants or fallen twigs or logs or beneath the stones. Microclimate refers to the climate on a very local scale. It differs from the general climate of the area. it influences the presence and distribution of organisms. From tourism viewpoint, this concept is very important. The term community has scale other than what we impose on it. Only rarely communities are separated by clear, sharp boundaries. In most situations, adjacent communities integrate with each other. Example, existence of amphibian capable of living in both aquatic and terrestrial ecosystems. Plants, animals and human beings live in association with a wide variety of other plants and animals. These communities of organisms are not mere collections or assemblages of individuals or populations, but they represent a highly ordered, dynamic and complex organization. Such complex natural organization with their living and non-living environments that control them and from which the living organisms derive their sustenance are called as ecosystem of an ecological system. Thus, ecosystems are communities of interacting organisms and the physical environment in which they live. Next is resistance and resilience. Community equilibrium or stability can be visualized in two ways, which is resistance and resilience. Resistance is the ability of a system to withstand or resist variations. Communities most resistant to change characteristically have a large biotic structure, for example, forest tree communities. Resilience is the speed with which a disturbed system returns to equilibrium or the same general state after being changed. A rapid return is evidence of high resilience. A slow return indicates low resilience. Ecological stability. Ecological stability refers to the response of the ecosystem to return to its original status after a disturbance. The magnitude and frequency of disturbance is a factor which determines ecosystem structure. It is a natural feature of many ecosystems. It is a prime cause of many spatial or temporal patterns of species distributions. The stability depends upon the frequency of these changes and the time marked by the interactions between its component species. A system is stable when it resists being deflected by some external factor or return to its original state after being deflected. Stability can be classified according to the nature of the original status of an individual or population or community or ecosystem. There is no such thing as perfect ecological balance in nature, for nature is always changing, even without human influence. From tourism point of view, it is important to realize the rate at which such changes are taking place in the ecosystems. Also, to realize how various tourism activities influence such changes either positively or negatively. As in the case of species extinctions, man-made changes in the ecosystem have greater influence on the ecological stability. Ecosystem dynamics. Ecosystems are inherently dynamic and can change in time and space. They do not exhibit single points of stable equilibrium, but have a multitude of steady states across space and time. Thus, our sense of integrity must recognize the ability of an ecosystem to attain and maintain its optimum operating point. Hence, the concept of ecosystem is value-laden. An essential paradox of wilderness conservation is that we seek to preserve what must change, but we must focus our attention on the rates at which changes occur, understanding that certain changes are natural, desirable and acceptable while others are not. Ecosystem integrity. Ecosystems have integrity when they have their native components intact in the face of external stresses. The components would include abiotic components, that is the physical elements, for example, water, rocks, soil, biodiversity, which is the composition and abundance of species and communities in an ecosystem. For example, shola forest, rainforest and grasslands representing landscape diversity, trout and rabbits representing species diversity, and ecosystem processes like the engines that make ecosystems work, for example, fire, flooding, predation, etc. Hence, a system with a higher integrity is more stable, supports higher diversity, and hence could attract more nature or eco-tourists. Now coming to sustainability. Sustainability has emerged as an umbrella concept. It is embracing many interconnected issues of environment and development. The term sustainability means to hold up, that is to maintain or protecting the productive use of resources and the integrity of environment. Only recently the concept of sustainability came into popular usage. A parasite-host model for humans and the biosphere is a basis for turning from exploiting the earth to taking care of it. In the biosphere, mankind's functional role is similar to that of parasites. A good parasite functions as part of a system and may evolve to actually benefit its host or the entire system. To develop a sustainable system and to analyze this system, we need a common currency. Energy is a convenient currency with which to analyze a system. Energy flows through all ecosystems, and the way it is used and stored determines the characteristics of each ecosystem. An ecosystem is a thermodynamically open, far from equilibrium system. To understand a system, all elements of the system must be expressed in common currency. Energy is a convenient currency, and the laws of thermodynamics are convenient tools. Thermodynamically open means that the ecosystem is receiving energy from the sun, which is outside the system, and discharging heat back outside the system into the atmosphere. Because the energy flow is one way through the ecosystem is not in equilibrium with its surroundings. The populations within the ecosystem are not in equilibrium either. As climate conditions change, energy flow through the system changes, resulting in changes in populations of species that comprise the ecosystem. Energy flow through natural ecosystems is not random but is controlled and self-regulated by internal feedback interactions between organisms or between organisms and environment. Stability and sustainability of energy flow through ecosystems are enhanced by mutualistic functions. As ecosystems become large and complex, organisms within a natural community evolve towards cooperative functions. Evolution has selected many species because of the higher efficiency of the functions they perform. To conclude, that we have discussed at length the various components relating to this episode, such as the history of ecology, biodiversity in ecosystems, basic laws of ecology, hierarchical levels of organization, and sustainability. Thank you.